Hello, hello, hello. It is the Blurry team. Welcome to the SideQuest, your weekly journey into the wonderful world of video games. I am one of your intrepid hosts, Dolly Demofsky. Joining me right here, Taylor Bliss.
I'm back.
And right here, Zach Quest.
Yep, I'm back.
Who's You were here last week, but now you're back again this week. I like that. Excellent. Were you here last week or no?
No, that was you and JJ.
No, JJ, and Sam last week. I don't even remember anymore. The rotating cast of scoundrels. How are you gents doing?
I'm very tired.
Yeah?
Very tired.
Excited to play a video game after the podcast.
Yeah, we're going to talk about
The video game.
Yeah, man. Tents and trees. We'll get into it. Yeah, it's good to have you guys on there. And oh, hey, Stefan. How's it going? Stefan says hello. Yeah, it's gonna be it'll be a fun show, packed show, a very packed show. There's some news. Obviously, a lot of news has happened since both of y'all were on, but
yeah, it's passed us by. Sad day, you know.
We'll
that's
never
already long. It's gone
again. Yeah, it's over. But a lot of
we might.
we probably will.
I mean, they only pushed it a month, right?
Yeah, we'll hear more about Xbox. I'm sure. But yeah, there's plenty of stuff to talk about. It is the typical slow news portion of the year, usually right after the holidays. So like the first couple weeks of January, things are kind of slow into the season, and then you got the middle of summer. There's not a lot going on. So
it's from Stardew Valley.
Oh, is it? Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get into quick news, and this is news that broke this week. There's actually a couple news bites. One related to one of the games we're playing, but this is news that we've been kind of anticipating, even though it's still technically a rumor. But the Switch 2, whatever their next gen console, is targeting a 2024 launch. Key partners supposedly have development kits. And
heard that one before.
Yeah, I heard that one before. And there are actually part of this rumor and or I don't know if it's in this one, but sort of an adjacent rumor was that we may be hearing about it in the next few weeks here. Which is really well ahead of schedule if this isn't launching till the latter half of next year. But
second half of 24, and we hear about it next week or in the next few weeks.
No way.
That's not exactly on Nintendo's schedule.
Because then you kill sales. And Nintendo actually had record-breaking sales. I didn't want to, there's not much to talk about there, but they had record-breaking sales of the Switch and games and consoles this first quarter because of Zelda did pretty good. Zelda. Their second best ever Switch, and maybe second best overall ever. So, yeah, I don't know why. Granted, they're still targeting lower than previous years in terms of sales of the Switch, which is pretty obvious. But you don't want to kill it altogether by saying there's going to be a new console coming out, next year. So, but some of the rumors within this, like I said, 2024, on par-ish with the PS4 Pro era of consoles, which seems about right. One thing that was announced earlier this week that kind of leads me into that a little bit is that they said they're making Jedi Survivor for previous gen consoles, and it'll be out next year. And I'm like,
it's gonna look like dog shit. It's like A, it's gonna look like dog shit, and B, why? Why?
Well, so that is the Switch 2. Their Jedi Survivor on Switch 2. If they said it's coming to PS4 and Xbox, why bring it to PS4 and Xbox? Because everyone's already moved over to the Xbox.
Because there was a version. If you make it for Switch 2, it's going to be compatible with Xbox One and PS4.
Exactly. So that's my thinking, and that's why might as well put it out, for these other consoles. So I mean, does that track with you guys? That's been my thinking.
I mean, it does make sense. All of the speculative rumors have been that the next gen Switch will kind of tap into the realm of performance of PS4 and Xbox One. So what's very funny to me about that is that we've lamented about how games have been stagnant because of being making themselves for the previous gen.
Sure.
And when are we going to see the next gen games? And then along comes this Switch successor, and they're like, they pulled me right back in.
Yeah, but if it's Nintendo, it's fine. That's just kind of how it.
Yeah, but at the same time, they're like, the online stores of the PS4 and Xbox One are just as accessible. I mean, that's going to be up to Microsoft and Sony, right, about when they close down their stores and adding new SKUs to it. Because so long as it's accessible and easily maintainable, why not allow new games to come if it meets the same specs as Switch 2? You're not going to be like, yeah, don't port your game here. Right? Like what? I mean, I guess, yes, they might say that so that people want to buy their new consoles, but then you might miss out on competition because Switch 2 is just going to sit there lapping it up instead at a potentially lower price point. I don't know. I think it's complicated. I'm not a fucking businessman.
It's the power bump is good for the Switch because now you can actually start getting into some of the granted, it'll still be at this point it'll be a 13-year-old console, like hardware by the time it comes out, as opposed to being like 20-year-old hardware basically right now. But at least you'll be able to capitalize on some of the, the strengths of the other gens because they are as big of a leap as 360 to Xbox One or PS3 to PS4 was. PS4 to PS5 isn't as big of a leap, and I'm assuming PS5 to PS6 will be similar. Now, granted, it's not so much on the visuals. Yeah, visual fidelity, great, and all that kind of stuff. It's really the back end stuff that makes this new gen as good as it is. So,
it's like it's not the graphics; it's the amount of the graphics.
I like that.
Yeah,
that's the name of our episode this week.
They can have like it looks the same, but they can just like have a lot more of it. Like in Final Fantasy 16, there's these like huge battles that look like pre-rendered cutscenes, and there's these huge like armies and stuff. Like that wouldn't have been able to be done before. Just like small stuff like that, but also the SSD is probably the biggest thing. But
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Switch 2 will probably be an SSD because it's just a mobile platform.
God, I hope that'd be great.
I'm guessing. I don't think it. I mean, could it be anything? I don't know. Is the Switch first Switch an SSD? I can't tell. Whatever the equivalent is to that for a mobile platform, I guess I don't know.
They could do an SSD because they're small, but like SD cards are still faster than hard drives.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I think that's likely it. They're still planning on carts. Supposedly, as this article says, they're still, still planned to be a portable device, hybrid thing. But it could launch with an LCD screen instead of the OLED.
Of course it will.
Which is, it's just, I mean, the OLED's fantastic. I freaking love the OLED on my Switch. It would be a bummer for me, but like the Steam Deck looks great. I'm not, the Steam Deck is LCD and that looks fine. So
listen, I mean, don't get me wrong. Does the OLED look good?
Hell yeah.
Does it even look better than Steam Deck? Yeah. I mean, the screen does.
Screen does. Exactly.
But the rest of it, no.
It's not the screen; it's the amount of the screens.
There's more screen on the OLED, screen. So
technically, yeah. So yeah. Anyways, stuff like backwards compatibility remains unclear. We talked about this in the past, in that the digital stuff will probably carry over fairly easily with an update. I don't want to say easily, but it'll probably carry over without too much heartache. But the actual carts might be an issue. I'm thinking, but well, I don't know. It's gonna be. It would be very Nintendo to say that the previous gen stuff doesn't work on this, or it would also be very Nintendo to have a Switch 1 inside the Switch 2, like they did with the GameCube and the Wii and the Wii and the Wii U. It's just a whole separate. Here, just shove your Game Boy Advance carts in the DS, and they'll still work. But yeah. Anyways, that's the that's what we're saying right now. That's the rumors. Who knows? Who knows when it would actually launch? Who knows when we're gonna get more information on it? But the Switch is coming in. I think it's probably over. It's at 130 million units sold right now. Still about 25 million behind the DS and the PS2. I don't know if Nintendo is saying that if Nintendo wants to hold that crown as the highest sold console.
I don't think they care. I don't think you care anymore.
I don't think they care. But yeah, the cart thing indicates that it'll be backwards compatible. We'll see. So anyway, that's the Switch 2 rumors. We're gonna start. Apparently, we might be hearing more about the Switch 2. At least rumors.
I'm almost hopeful that it's not backwards compatible. To be honest.
Really? Why?
Because it being backwards compatible means that they have to spend valuable resources of layout of the chipset in adding things that make it backwards compatible.
Sure.
Alternatively, making sure that you have a Tegra chipset that can emulate or run and the existing Switch stuff. What it does, like the Switch is really small, right? Mm-hmm. And unless they're making it much larger where they can add in the existing or a very similar chipset to what is already there, mm-hmm. I don't see how you easily emulate the Switch as it is now while also including a brand new chipset that can do stuff on the same level as PS4 and Xbox One. So
it's going to be a Nintendo, like the most Nintendo way for them to do it is they're going to announce the Switch 2 and say only these games are capable.
Exactly. And what they're effectively going to do is that they're going to port those games to the new Switch. And so it'll work on both. It'll be backwards compatible with Smash Brothers and Tears of the Kingdom and stuff like that. What they're doing is they're just granting you licensing rights to a ported version of it, but it's not true backwards compatibility like we consider it for old stuff. I think what Xbox did and what Microsoft did with Xbox on the Series and the Xbox One and their backwards compat is honestly, like, in terms of game preservation, one of frankly, it's incredible. We're literally never going to see something at that scale ever again. Is my assumption. It's extremely time consuming and difficult to do. Mm-hmm. And now that we've moved over to effectively emulating PCs, we're just playing games on PCs that are specially coded for this kind of stuff, it just becomes more difficult. So
sure. It's interesting. I will say that it's, even though the Switch is an old console, it's in its 7th year. Because of the last 3+ years, time is just been so messed up right now. Where the Xbox Series and the PS5 are 3 years old. And that it's bizarre to realize that, right? This is their 3rd year, and the Switch is now in its 7th year, and you still got PS4s out there and games being made for both, which is 10 years old now. So time is a flat circle, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. What is not a flat circle, all right, you ready for this, is that Baldur's Gate 3 is several circles, actually. 500,000 circles. Is that? I don't know. At some point, what was it, Zach? Baldur's Gate 3 had like 500K
It was over.
It was over that.
Yeah.
It just kept going up and up and up and up and up every time we kind of hit the refresh button. I know a bunch of us on staff are playing it, but it's a hit. Seems like it. We're like, no argument there. I think the early access for Baldur's Gate 3 was really smart. Obviously, get that in front of people and keep tweaking it and adjusting it. And then they've had great PR. They've had great community outreach. They've been working with the fans, and they've retained. It seems like they've retained every single one of those folks who got into the early access, which doesn't always happen. A lot of folks will get the EA and they'll say, "All right, that was fun. I played this beta, and I think that's enough for me." But Baldur's Gate 3, I feel part of it is also that Dungeons and Dragons is having a huge renaissance right now. I know it is in our family. The movie did great. People are sort of gravitating towards more of that content. So there's a lot of great factors working together for this game, and it's got super high Metacritic score too. It's selling like crazy. So
I think what's cool is Larian, the studio, they did Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, and both of them were early access games that they had long access periods, and they just developed the game with the community. But the way they do it is really interesting. Is they keep it within one small area of the story, and they just add and develop things, and they're able to test things on a smaller scale and then apply it at a larger scale.
Yeah,
so
what they do is they incorporate every mechanic that's going to make it into the game and say, okay, every mechanic that's going to be in the game, you're going to experience at least some portion of it in this small snippet that you will have access to the whole time. And you can just keep playing it. So especially the people that are really into this type of RPG, just play the shit out of it. They deep dive onto every facet of how you could experience this game, and Larian gets to, receive that feedback and be like, okay, we need to make sure that this is like this is like this is, and then in the background, Larian gets to go and make, the one of the deepest stories that's ever been developed on an RPG, and not show that to the player. That's the advantage of what Larian does.
It's crazy. I don't know how they did it, but it's something.
But on top of that, I mean, what was the count? 174 hours?
Yeah, it's 174 hours of cutscenes.
Love it.
Wild shit. Yeah, I know Baldur. I still think that even with that, the success of the first 24 hours of Baldur Gate 3 is still kind of phenomenal in a mysterious way. Divinity Original Sin 2 is extremely highly regarded, extremely well reviewed, but it's super niche. It's not one of those things that's like, oh yeah, everybody knows about Divinity Original Sin. You know what I mean? The extremely popular. It's I don't want to call it small time, but it's particular. And so it's weird that Baldur's Gate 3 morphed into the release that it did, because not that it's undeserved, but it feels like there's missing foundation to that explains it to me in my head.
Yeah,
I thought, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm gonna touch on it later when I talk about it, but it's less focused on the combat like the other games are, and more focused on the role play. But also just D&D just having this huge.
That's true.
Helps
That's true.
A lot, and them showing off things that are like, hey, you can just do this. Hey, you can just do this. Hey, you can do this. Hey, you can be a wheel of cheese, and because that's true. You can play the game as a wheel of cheese, and that's just kind of an option that you have, which is crazy. But that's a very Dungeons and Dragons type thing, and I'll get into it later when we get into my spot. But yeah, it's really I think it's something to do with Dragon Age and BioWare and those types of games. And
Yeah, I mean,
being in like
it has a long. Yeah, I mean, when you put it that way, it makes me think that there's kind of a long and winding, path that leads to this release. Original Sin 2 released 6 years ago. It was in 2017, right?
Probably, yeah.
And so you think about what's happened even just on the landscape of popular culture and for Dungeons and Dragons in those past 6 years, and it's completely different. Wasn't the first video about maybe? I don't remember. If you want me to be honest.
Yep.
But anyway, so past 6 years, I mean, things have just changed a lot. But also, so has early access in the 6 years too. Mm-hmm. But and just to touch back on what Zach said, the type of early access that they did with this and with Original Sin 2 is just makes me think of it done the right way. Which is to not, even people that played the early access version too much, quote unquote too much, there's still, they have a reason to come back for this. Yeah. You didn't experience the game. You experienced the portion that gave them enough information to make the rest of the game. It makes me think.
Even that portion has new stuff that got added, so it's like you haven't seen the rest of the game. Like, I have friends who have spent hundreds of hours, like 200, 300 hours in the early access, and they're still playing the game now, but it's like, because it's like, okay, they obviously like it, so now let's give them the rest of the meal and let them play. Like, it's
a dude who eats appetizers for 8 hours before dinner.
Yeah. No, I have a lot more to say, but I'll save that for my part. So
okay. All right. Let's move on. I don't know if there's any other news that we wanted to cover. Evo is happening.
Evo's happening.
So that's Evo's always fun to watch. Yeah.
They have
at least part of it.
Yeah, at least the commercials are my favorite part.
Yeah.
Dude, I was watching all day. I was writing and watching, and there's like a designated ad block for an hour. I'm not even joking. It was an hour-long ad block of just Sony sponsored trailers of like, here's some Crunchyroll trailers, here's some anime trailers, here's some games, here's some like Evo stuff, here's some shirts. It's like, it was just on repeat for an hour. And there was pools going on for Street Fighter 6, but they just weren't showing it. They were just showing ads. So and it's not even the ads that you can skip. It's like actually baked in like Evo ads. So if you like watching ads,
And if you like watching ads, there it is. All right, let's I think that's it. Let's move on to what we've been playing, and I want to start with Zach, because we just got finished talking about Baldur's Gate and
Baldur's
Gated community, and I think it's time to actually talk about this. What's shaping up to be quite a game, some might say. Quite a game. I'll start with this teaser first, and then I'll play the other one. But here, go ahead. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go into like my how I approach these games. So like how I approach RPGs is I really like to make the character, and then I don't think as me as I play these games. I think as the character. Like, I design the character. I'm like, okay, this is who this guy is.
Wait, this guy's a role player.
Yeah, so like, I really like to do that. And there's a lot of games where I have to a lot of that lifting is on my own shoulders. Like, I have to like make the decisions on myself, or like I have to hold myself up to this like to
Sure.
being this other guy. But this game, what it does really well is it already knows what kind of guy that I am, and the options that it gives me are the ones that I would say as this person. So
Hmm.
that's it's really impressive because like my character is a drow, and in this setting, in the Forgotten Realms setting, drow live in the Underdark. They live like underground, away from people, and they're constantly kind of like in battle with each other. But besides that, they're not really liked by a lot of people
Mhm.
on the like land, like on the above. So my character naturally is a lot of people who just hate me because they hate drow. They're very racist against drow, and I knew that going into the game. I was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna play a drow because that's gonna be fun. I want to see how people react. And I made my character a sorcerer who is a charisma caster. So my
Hmm.
charisma is super high. So what this means is in conversations when people are being really racist towards me, I can use my charisma to make them not hate me. So like that was like my intent going into it, and the game lets you do that. Like there's so many options where it's like someone's just like, oh, why are you here? Like I don't want you here. Get out of here. And then I'm like, no, blah blah blah, and then they're like, okay, cool, yeah, you're a great guy now, whatever, like stuff like that. So and normally if I wasn't playing this charisma caster, I would have to leave that situation or
Hmm.
use another person in my party, because you can play as the other people in your group and use them to do conversations and stuff. And like I could like stand outside the door and have my elf do the talking, right, and get through that story, which is cool. It's a whole other side of this game. Like, so I intentionally made that character. And what's really fun is like for halflings and gnomes, they're usually slaves to people like my guy. So whenever I meet them, they're like, "Are you gonna slave me?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Okay, cool, let's be friends." I'm like, "Okay, yeah." So like, but I could also enslave them if I wanted to, or I could kill them, or I could like. There's so many options, and that's what's really impressive to me about the game that I just want to like get across is it allows that level of expression, right?
Hmm.
And this is only my side. Like this is only me as a drow sorcerer. Imagine all the other types of stories that are happening for different races, different classes, different like there's so many different permutations to these things going on in the game. And like I can only speak from how I'm experiencing it, which is just like on that level, it's kind of crazy to think about that. But I want to even like drive it in even further. Is there's been times where like my character is not able to win over another character, so I send out my elf to talk to
Hmm.
them, and then he's able to get a whole different conversation because they're willing to talk to him over me. So it's just like it's all because of the
Wow.
race I picked. It's just so interesting, and it's just like it's that amount of detail that they put into it. That's like that amount of detail in the role playing, but it's also in the combat. It's also in the world itself. Like it's just like there's so many things that the like I could play the game, you could play the game, and Taylor could play the game, and all of us would have a different experience, which is
Hmm.
just kind of
Hmm.
mind blowing because also a lot of these choices are falling onto dice checks and dice rolls and class backgrounds, backgrounds, actions
Hmm.
and decisions that you've made prior, people that you killed, people who you might not have killed, people who you met, people who you might not have met, that always kind of it just naturally wraps around each other and just makes this like this organic like
You know, you
game.
know
Like
what?
it's like an
Hmm.
organic role playing game, which is what like the term role playing game gets used a lot, but it's never like this. It's never like Dragon Age Origins, which is like the first game I played in this genre that kind of made me be like, oh, well, this is what games could be. This is actually like the realization of what an RPG means, like actually playing as a totally different human and like inhabiting them
Hmm.
in a world. Um, but yeah, Taylor, you were gonna say something.
No, I was just saying, like, you're talking about it, and what it kind of came to me was that it's this feels, your description feels like the very narrow and focused version of what the Dwarf Fortress experience is,
Yeah.
where it is, you are living the experience and going through it. It's just that for Dwarf Fortress, it's the story is being told to you, or you're experiencing it with the story. Except with Baldur's Gate, you're directing the story because it's your character. But they deliver that same type of experience of live in the world, and see everything as it happens. It's just that Baldur's Gate 3, it's like, obviously much shorter time span, although you might play it for as long. But you're not going through generations and generations, and it's hyper focused on the character that you build, as opposed to, in Dwarf Fortress, the character is your city, your mountain, your fortress. But just the way that you described it made me like imminently think of that experience from Dwarf Fortress. So,
yeah, and so on like a story level, like, so the overarching story is you wake up on this illithid ship, which is what that is. There's these mind flayers who are attacking Ivernum, which is like the continent where this takes place. They're going through different dimensions to attack the planes where humans live and stuff. And you're on there, and you get this worm put into your head, which is the way these mind flayers kind of control their underlings, and you and other people who become your party have these worms in their brains, but they aren't turning into these creatures that they would normally turn into because of the worm in their head. So that's just kind of like the thing is like the ship crashes, and you're like, I got a worm in my head. I need to get this out so I don't turn into this big mind flayer, whatever. But that's like the inciting incident, and it starts out small. It's still, the story's pretty small for me. I'm not past like the initial kind of like hump. I'm still kind of getting there. But that's the initial inciting incident. Like, let's figure out how to get these worms out of our brains. And what the game does so well is you meet other companions and characters who have the same issue as you, and you're connected because you have the same like worms, so you can dig into their brains and like get into their past. Some people don't like it, some people don't mind it, but you meet these other characters, and what is
set a mimic.
yeah, and what is so amazing about meeting these characters is everyone has their own story, which clearly that's a given, right? But like, everyone has their own thing that they want to pursue besides the worm. Like, there's this girl, her name's Lizelle. She's a Geth, and they're these warrior race that are, the ones fighting the war against the mind flayers, and she wants to get to this warrior because she thinks there's a healer in her race that could help her. So she has that going. Then you have a camp of druids who are being attacked by goblins, and there's tieflings there who the druids don't want the tieflings there, so you kind of have to like help with that. And there's these goblins who also have things in their brains too, so you go to the goblin camp and you meet other people who are controlling the goblins with the things in their brains. And everyone, but the thing that I like, everyone has their own agency. Like, everyone in your party has their own thing going on, and they remind you of it. Like, if you stop, some characters are like, why are we stopping? Like, we need to go. Or like, some of them hate the other people in your group, and there's times where they attempt to kill each other. Like, and if you let them kill each other, that main character won't be in the game for you. She's just gone forever.
Hmm.
Or you can even just kill them too, straight up if you wanted to. You could just kill main characters who have plots and stories kind of connecting everything. You can just kill them, which is another layer of like this like role play that they allow you. Um, but yeah, that's also another thing too. It's like I could talk to Taylor and be like, "Oh, did blah 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 say this to blah blah blah," and he could be like, "No." I'd be like, "Oh."
What are you talking about?
Yeah, and
Yeah, blah blah blah.
or there's a Asterion who's the elf. He's a vampire. You learn out pretty quick. He's also a vampire who was like a slave who could only drink blood of animals. And he at one night you wake up and he's about to bite your neck, and you can oblige him, let him suck your blood. And if you do that, he'll kill you. He'll kill the main character, and then you have to take control of another character to revive you with a spell. Like, which is just crazy. And but there's so many instances like that where you go back to camp and your guys are just like, yeah, I got this thing going on. Like there's this guy named Will who not Will, this guy named Gale. Gale is a mage. He has a pact with some deity, and the deity demands him to suck magic from magical items. So you have to bring him items or he dies. And if he dies, you have a ritual that you have to do that he explains to you in vivid detail. He's like, you have to open my book bag and use the purple string, open up the note, and on the note there's going to be letters for you to play on a flute. And once you play those letters on the flute in the right order, another box will pop up, and you have to answer this riddle and say this to the box to open that up to get the scroll to revive me. And you're like, okay, Gale. And then you then you just kind of like forget about it, and then you come back to camp and he's dead. And you know what? You loot his body. There's his book bag. Time to revive Gale. And you have to remember every single step, or he's gonna be dead. You won't have Gale anymore. Like, and that is just like, it's crazy. There's just so much stuff that is just like, okay, like I'm 20 hours into this game and this is what I'm presented with. Like,
wow.
How does it keep, like, I have 4 out of 10 people that I can get in my group. So it's just like, there's just it's so dense, and they don't expect you to like experience everything in the first playthrough or second or third or fourth or fifth. Like it's a game that is dense and it respects your time, which is kind of weird. Like it respects your time, saying like, you play the game however you want to play. If you want to come play more, sure, whatever. But it gives you exactly what you want. And like even that amount of detail is also in the combat. For example, you can like throw water on people and shock them with electricity, and it does twice as much damage. Or you can like walk into a puddle, put some ice on it, make them slip, and then turn it in, then like light it on fire and it melts. There's just a lot of stuff. It's crazy. Play it. It's really good.
Yeah. I am.
Yeah.
What have you've been playing it on PC, right?
Yeah, I've been playing it on my computer. Yeah, and also last night I played for like 4 or 5 hours, and I didn't even get into like combat. Like I was just walking around, and they give you options to like, they give you a jump button, so you can just jump around. And like I was using jump on my most like athletic guy to like get around encounters and like go and explore a tower, and like using that to jump over traps, or just like there's just so much stuff. It's like, it's just crazy of the amount of like minute detail that's taken into account. It's
time to build a box fort and get around critical encounters.
Right.
Like
right.
I'm in the Underdark. I'm trying to like figure out how to get to this thing, and they were like, yeah, so there's this like rock thing, you have to do this whole quest to get around. And I was like, no, I'm gonna extend my vampire, I'm gonna make him like jump really high and like go over the wall. And like, so I just did that and got around the whole quest and just kind of like started doing my own thing. And yeah, it's It's crazy.
There are so many intricacies in this game. Like there's so many threads that work together, much like D&D in real life, or as real life as it gets. But it seems like there's so many aspects of this that are tied together through just how the game functions, and how how some of the real world aspects, like you're mentioning, sort of the race relation stuff, and then you throw magic into there, and then you start throwing some other aspects, and it all feeds off of itself.
Yeah, it's like it feels like a role playing game. Like that's like, because when you say a RPG, there's games you think
in a realized world, it's a role playing.
Yeah, when you say RPG, you think of like, oh, game of stats and leveling up, and that's kind of it. No, this is like an actual, like, it's that, but this is like your actual story. You're this guy, like you're
the heart of what the role is, your character. You take on this role. It's not it's not about stats. Sure, there's stats there, and so my issue with RPGs has always been to
there's Gale.
There you go. Has always been to do the right thing every time. I can never get out of making myself a character that's not myself. It's like I'm always the dude with the faux hawk and brown hair and brown eyes. Sorry, Taylor. God.
You surprised me there.
And I'm always trying to do good, and I'm always trying to be on the side of the people, not the empire, and that kind of stuff, And it's so.
You have to release yourself to the role play.
Well, I think that's what Baldur's Gate. So I've got it on Steam Deck. I'm just chipping away at it after that massive, 150 gig download that it was for day one or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I ended up waiting. By the way, I'm like, you know what? Because we kept getting emails about updates. They're like, hey, you're going to have to delete the game and then reinstall this whole big thing. And if you have early access, I'm like, you know what? I'll wait till launch day when they get those massive kinks out, and then I'll download it. So I had
to keep installing the game over and over again each time I had a patch.
Yeah,
and it's like I did that, and because I wanted to keep playing, sure. I didn't want to wait. I was like, I'm gonna download this game 5 more times. I don't care. I just want to play. Like,
hopefully you have unlimited data, which is great. But no, there's you talk about depth in games, and we talk about RPGs, and I know Starfield's out there, and we just had Zelda, and we've had Final Fantasy and other stuff. This really feels like the true, you are in this world, you are D&Ding in this world, and the DM is telling you all of these details that are happening and things that are happening around you. But now it's just visual and audio in this case, but it's all there, which is cool. I think it's fantastic. I'm so excited to dive into this and never play another game again because it'll take me about 3,000 hours to complete this, knowing me.
Yeah, there's conversations. In conversation, the game is constantly rolling dice checks behind you. So it's not showing you the dice rolls, but sometimes if you succeed a check, it'll say check passed, and a voice will come over and be like, you realize that blah 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 blah, and it'll give you insight into what is happening or something that is going on.
Sure.
If you're walking around, you'll roll perception checks, and the characters will realize something on the ground or like see something. Wow. So the game is constantly like checking your stats, checking your characters.
Adapting. That's cool.
It's crazy. And I'm glad. I mean, it's kind of funny seeing other devs being like kind of like mad, like, oh, this is setting a standard for video games. It's like, you gotta adapt or die, guys. Like this is
the year for that, though, right? We've had probably several games this year now, and this is the latest that have been like, crap, what have we been doing? How did they pull this off?
We've had multiple genre like revolutionizing games in the past 2 years. So it's exciting. But the thing is, nobody's going to ever reach Larian level unless they invest 6 years of time into a game.
And
a single player game with no games as a service transactions and stuff. So
Mhm.
good luck.
And the great thing about Larian is somebody approached them earlier this week and asked them if they'd be willing. Would you be willing to sell if somebody wanted to throw a big chunk of change at you? And they said, "Nah, we're fine. We're fine doing what we do on our own." So yeah, good to them. Who it was? It Bio. Who was it that did the first two Baldur's Gates? Was it BioWare or was
BioWare, yeah, it was when they were good.
it? But I mean, you could definitely see what Larian brings to this. With their, like you said, the Divinity games, all of that work there. They seem to have done some excellent work because this is Zach on your. Would you consider this a GOTY contender?
Yeah.
Based on okay, there you go. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
cool.
I think I don't think it's a competition for me at least.
Sure.
So
yeah, tents and trees, man. Tents and trees. We're gonna get to that in a little bit. No, that's awesome. So Baldur's Gate 3 is out. I have a feeling, just like the other two big games that we've already talked about this year, we're gonna be talking about this game over the next several months, and I'm excited to pour time into it. So yeah, thanks to we got this as a code for Steam. I think I have to say that now every time we get a review code. We got this as a Steam code.
I got that as a Steam code 3 years ago.
Yeah, did you? And then you got the actual release version now. Very cool. Okay, should we move on to Taylor?
Sure.
Well, before we do that, I have since we're going to talk about one of the games we're going to talk about is water based that you have.
It is.
And a good drink to have outdoors on the water is a margarita, and I have switched from my coffee to Cayman Jacks. I don't know if you guys have had Cayman Jack before. These are freaking fantastic. This is a watermelon margarita. Just canned margaritas are so good. I highly recommend it.
I had some butterscotch liquor.
Ooh.
You're both disgusting.
Shut up, Taylor. What are you playing, Taylor?
All right, it's been a minute, so let me go back to the vaults.
Disney vaults are opening.
The Disney vault.
It has literally been long enough that I have not talked about Dave the Diver on the program.
God. No, I'm just kidding.
And let me tell you, Dave the Diver is a video game in the pantheon of video games. It is, Dave the Diver is just like kind of a pleasure to play. Came out of nowhere to me. I'm not sure where I would have known about it. I didn't really have much of. It was just outside of my sphere of PR run. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like, they make tongue-in-cheek jokes about how many mini games they packed into the game. And self-referential in that way. And yeah, it's just kind of a treat. You're the diver, Dave. There's these oh no, you know what? I did talk about Dave the Diver once. I just remembered. We were playing these clips made me realize I had played it for like 2 hours. It was the first week. But yeah, no, it's just really good game. The two main elements are you dive and catch fish, and then you run a sushi restaurant from the fish that you caught. But they just managed to put every little piece in there. Mini games galore, like things that you just have to do to be able to keep going and play the game. Even just the facets of catching a fish are mini games themselves. Even when you have to refill the wasabi because the wasabi runs out because you're making so much sushi, and that's just like a little thing of like you have to flick one of the thumbsticks, right? But like every single facet of the game is like that.
You're Steam decking this bad boy, right?
I've done both, but primarily Steam Deck. It runs very, very well on Steam Deck. Yeah, so Dave the Diver it's just a very good game. Zach, did you left?
He left us.
My Dave the Diver buddy.
Scared him off. But yeah, he played it as well. I got a review code for it, so I'm excited to jump in too. But continue. Yeah.
It's Zach. We need to cross words on Dave the Diver for a minute.
Yeah.
I just want to know. I just want to talk about it. The two of us, just guys being dudes.
Yeah. So Dave the Diver is okay. Dave the Diver is really, really good. The story I could do without. I think the story ties it down a lot and makes me lose interest.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I almost want it to be more. Not that it has to be compared this way, but more Stardew Valley-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah!
If that makes sense.
Oh wow!
Because it does a lot of things that Stardew Valley does. In that it just like continues to like grow and expand in all of the natural goodness of the game that it brings. But the fact that it's so locked behind not just progression of you playing the game, it's locked behind the progression of you doing this kind of mundane story.
Right.
Which is how I interpret what you mean, Zach.
Yeah, I think the game would be a lot better if it didn't have the secret underwater society story. That like there's a point where you get to their village and you have to do a bunch of like quests, like fetch quests, and that's where I stopped. Okay.
Yeah.
I
agree that it was like it was flowing at like a brisk pace up until that point, and then it kind of like they put the brakes on a bit. Because it's also right around the same time. So you upgrade your restaurant in the same way that you upgrade a lot of your other stuff. And that point in the story is also right around, you hit this big brick wall where there's two things required to upgrade your restaurant: likes on social media and the highest taste score of the best dish that you can make. And I went above and beyond the total like social media likes almost twofold. But I still like, you're hampered behind story progression because better tasting fish are at a specific depth or whatever, which is tied behind the story progression. And it's just like, I don't know. There was some pacing issues that stem back to that. But otherwise it's like, I don't know. It's a lot of fun to play. Like I almost want like an adventure mode where I can just like do anything I want.
I think it's a really good game, but it just has a lot of like fat, no pun intended. There's a lot of systems in there that the game like expects you to engage with, but you don't need to.
Right.
Like it's like there's just a lot of stuff for stuff's sake. And like it's good, but it's like also like I don't really like I haven't needed to upgrade any of my stuff really. Like my suit, I've just kind of left at like level 2 or whatever, like my gun level 2, whatever. Like and I've been able to do just fine. Like there's no like gameplay like encouraging me to pursue other facets of like using your guns. Like there's like a whole mechanic of like finding guns and like breaking them down to unlock other guns, and like I just don't have to because I'm fine.
Yeah, they almost put like a whole Monster Hunter level gun fabrication system in it, and it's just like and by the same token, it's like, I don't know, in my opinion, if you're going to put that many systems in, you got to make them flow fast and furious. Because I'm wrangling 6 different systems, and for the upgrade portion, there's like 6 different variations of 3 different guns, and it requires that I have 2 to 3 parts of different fish for each variation. So you're talking about like, 15 to 20 individual fish parts for each variation of the gun. And they just take too, like, it takes too long. It takes too long to get them. It's not Monster Hunter, so I'm not, like, when I'm farming the fish and there's only like 4 great trevally in every dive that I do, it slows it down in the unfun way as opposed to slowing it down in the fun way that sometimes Monster Hunter can do. But that's the negative side. The rest of it is pretty much all positive, where it's a pleasure to play. It looks really good. The soundtrack is very good. And one day when I hit the next valley in my game playing, I'll go back to it and finish it off, because I kind of hit a similar plateau where I got a little bit further in the story than Zach did, but you climb up there and it's just like there's still more stuff that I know that I don't have, and it's just like you took a little too long. But it's fun to play.
That, also the humor is really good. It's incredibly funny.
Yeah, writing is very good.
Game. Yeah, so
and all of the animated vignettes like hit very, very well. They're all on the nose.
There's some your boss, the samurai chef, African American guy. He takes Instagram pictures, and they're really boomer, like where they're like out of focus. It's like pixel art that they did, which is crazy. Like pixel art of food out of focus, or like it's like a picture like this, and his shadow is on the food. Like it's just like some really just like fun details that they've added into the game that I just love.
Sure.
So, yeah.
But other than Dave the Diver, I picked up Remnant 2, which is a sequel to Remnant.
Is it?
From the Ashes. Well, no, they didn't call it Remnant 1, Dally. You fool.
You fool.
But I played through Remnant 1 with a couple buddies after it went free on Epic Game Store, and I hit up my boys and was like, "Yo, is it time for the run back?" And they said, "I guess it is." But Remnant 2 is really good. I think it's actually excellent example of a sequel to. I mean, I was happy to play it for free. I don't know how much I would have been enthused about paying for the full price of that game.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. It just it's kind of one note. And Remnant 2 is like
it's crazy.
3 is like I don't know. Like the difference between this and Remnant 1 is pretty nutty. It is more engaging to play. A lot of the gameplay is very similar but smoother, and just kind of like, I don't know, it just all flows better. It's funny that they're leaning into the, it's got a dodge roll which has iframes on it, so naturally it's Dark Souls now. But it had that before, but it didn't really occur to me that it was that before this. But yeah, Remnant 2 is a lot of fun. If you're talking about multiplayer co-op on a game where you actually have to execute, I'm personally going to play this over Destiny 2. Let me put it that way. Dude, I'm never gonna fucking touch Destiny 2 again in my whole lifetime. So, there's no shot. Remnant's a lot of fun. It's got upgrades, it's got gear, which is I'm waiting. Like I want gear again now, because I haven't.
Oh yeah, I like that.
I haven't found. I haven't found a single piece of armor.
Sure.
Excuse me.
What? So I haven't played the game, but I watched people play it. And what is immensely fascinating to me is how different all the levels are. Like you just like walk through these portals and it's like, okay, you're in this like stony like forest or whatever. You walk
Yeah.
through, it's like, hey, you're in Bloodborne world now. I was like, what the heck is going on here? It's
Yeah,
just
I
like
mean,
it's
you know, this
so aesthetically pleasing. It's crazy.
so the story of Remnant is that the world of Earth got invaded by this. It's actually kind of similar to Control in a certain way, which is that like multi-dimensional, the parasites seeped into the world when you found a door to the multiverse, right? So that part is very similar. Basically, in Remnant, these beings called the Root, people on Earth were like, oh man, we found the multi-dimensional crystal, quick, let's peer into the other worlds. And then the Root was like and then they snuck in and basically post-apocalyptic the world like real quick. Remnant 1, you remove the Root from Earth, but then guess what, they are still out there somewhere, and so yeah, but the advantage of that is that when you're dealing with a magical multi-dimensional crystal, you can make whatever the fuck you want. Like it doesn't matter. And so they get to make every they even actually call it biomes in the game. And you just get to make whatever you want because there's nothing to ground it into one thing or the other. I was just playing in a world where you're playing on a dying, like next to a dying star on a world that's about to get sucked into a black hole. That what they also means is that they get to write little vignettes on every world and they can actually be interesting because it's inconsequential. You're going to go through, you're going to clear it out and move on to the next world. So you can just tell these little contained stories of that are actually interesting and then let it be what it is and then move on. So it's they make the most of it and the gunplay is good. Like I said, I just want more gear. I want more. It's kind of a looter shooter and I want more of the looting. I'm doing plenty of the shooting.
Love it.
But yeah, it's a good game. And then I've been really tired lately and haven't barely played any games, so it's been Picross all day. Well,
I like
all night.
Oh, Picross.
Picross. Let me cross those. Let me cross. This is still Picross S.
Okay.
The OG. I have 1.5 more pages of Mega Picross left before I completely ace all of Picross S unassisted.
My guy, Tents and Trees, man. It's a visual Picross that it's just so smooth. It's really
Thanks, Open Critic,
tightened.
for showing me that game.
Yeah, we just were talking about it. We were like, what is this Tents and Trees? It's got a better review scores than Final Fantasy 16. And then like, holy shit, we all one by one got addicted to Tents and Trees because it's such a perfect bathroom game. It's also such a perfect Teams meeting game when you're stuck in long Teams calls. Just do fucking Tents and Trees. But yeah, no, Picross is so good. It's way better than Sudoku. It's just such a terrific.
Yeah, it's always great because like,
yep.
When I hit the point where I've either entered a square or erased a square and I don't remember, I'm like, all right, let me just put you down because it's time to fall asleep.
Yep.
It's great.
Awesome, dude. Good
I
stuff.
usually read a book before I go to bed, but
nah, Picross, baby.
Picross. Well, here's what
Dally, what you been playing?
Okay. I'm gonna start with this one. Zach told me about a game that I had never heard of before, a game series, and I'm like, this just seems kind of whatever. It seems like a Zachy style game. and
One of my favorite games ever.
that would be Lisa. Okay.
Ah,
The definitive edition of Lisa just launched, which, adjusts the visuals and kind of repackages a bunch of things and adds a lot of quality of life improvements. And I got this for Switch, and I thought, I let's give this a shot. I wanted to check this game out because I don't want to sit in front of a computer screen to play an intentionally low res style, Super Mario Brothers 3 level of graphic
Ooh,
fidelity.
get him, Brad. Ooh.
I really fucking like this game, dude.
Yep.
Holy shit. Okay, I'm gonna say this. I felt so uncomfortable throughout. So this packages Lisa the Painful and Lisa the Joyless or Joyful.
Joyful,
whatever.
yeah.
Joyful. So it packages both of them together, or you can actually buy them separate. They're sort of the definitive versions of each. But I got the code that has both of them. It made me very uncomfortable because a story about abuse, whether it's drug abuse, whether it's child abuse, whether it's familial abuse, it's social abuse, it's status, it's classism. It's set in a post-apocalypse, and all of the shit that all the baggage that we have right now is just amplified. Like personal baggage is completely amplified. So the game starts, at least the Painful starts with Brad, B-Rad, who's a kid, and his dad just abuses the heck out of him. His dad basically says he hates him, blah blah. And so years later, after all the women have died, and it's just the dudes left, and guys are being guys, and they're taking control, and they're murdering each other, and they're just getting worse. And Brad finds a baby girl, and then he starts to raise a baby girl because he had such a shitty father. Well, you'd think, all right, well, he's going to start doing something right by his, by the growth and by how he's going to protect this child, the only female on the planet. But no, by the end of this thing, you're like, fuck, everything is cyclical. Like, abuse is cyclical. Like, if you don't have proper health, it really is a story about mental health, about personal health, about love and affection, how to really treat, or how to really go about helping yourself and helping others that have those issues, or at least understanding what those issues are. And because of that, man, it just gut punches you every opportunity, whether it's Brad's so-called friends that are with him. Like, you learn to essentially hate all of them. Buddy is what he names the baby girl, so that he can kind of hide, what she is. Otherwise, everyone's going to want the only female.
Yep.
It's just wild. So it's all done. For anybody who hasn't played the Lisa games, it's a 2D sort of platforming looking world, but it's all storytelling is really all it is. Like, the battles are all meaningful. It's not like you're running around doing these stupid random battles in like typical RPGs. These are sort of Mario RPG style battles where there's, sometimes there'll be like key button presses. Sometimes there'll be specific actions that you have to do. By the way, I'm going to play the live action trailer because apparently they decided to make a live action trailer. So let's start with this sucker. But God, it's a heavy game. Both the games. The Joyful is sort of an epilogue style thing, set after the events of the first one. I wasn't expecting what this game was going to be, and I really enjoyed it. And I will say, playing on the small screen is perfect. I'm really glad that I chose the Switch version because I want to play this on a very focused screen. I don't want to have these, constant distractions by. Right now, I'm staring at my laptop. I have 50 freaking tabs open. I have a light in my face. I want the simplicity of just staring at this low res, these low res style visuals, but focusing on the story. So Lisa is deep. It's not going to be for everybody because of the really strong themes within it, but it's a marvel of what Dingaling as a developer they were able to pull off.
It's just
to
one
development.
guy.
It's just one guy, man. But
It's
what they were
made in
able to
RPG
pull off,
Maker
dude,
as well. So
which is such an awesome testament to what you can do in RPG Maker because yeah, looking at this now, I'm like, oh shit, I can make this. You know, I should
yeah,
try to make this kind of stuff. I know exactly how they made this kind of stuff because I'm familiar with RPG Maker 95 and all that. Anyway, so yeah, the portable version or play it portable, play it on the Steam Deck, play it on the Switch. You want to play it on that form factor because I think it really fits in that form factor. You play it with the lights off because you want to focus on the screen and focus on the story. It's such a narrative game that you really get all in, even with sort of these RPG elements. Like when you're building, you got your party built up and your teammates are with you. And whew, it's a game and a half, but worth owning. I think worth owning.
and the music is really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think the music is something to write home about. He made it in.
I was surprised about the music. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned it. Yeah.
Yeah, he made it in FL Studio on the trial version with the default sounds. He just he made it like with no experience making music, and it's good. Like it's like it, and it fits the game is so rough and weird and strange. The music fits it perfectly. It's so
really
it's such a singular voice. But yeah, the thing that I really love about the game, besides everything you said, is the choices that you make to exchange parts of your body to help people. Like, how far are you actually willing to go? And it affects your gameplay. Like, if you give up an arm, like you lose.
You can no longer left punch.
You lose your punch. You can become just like a body and just kind of like worm your way around. It's so good. It makes me want to cry just thinking about it. I love this game so much.
And again, it makes you want to cry not because of like it's a technical achievement, but because of those you go back and you try to remember the plot to this thing, and you're like, oh shit. Then there's this. Then there's the choices that lead to doing this, and you're like, oh shit, make a choice. Oh shit, I have to decide on this type of thing, which is really weird. And Morty broke your neck is way more deep in this game than got slashed in like Final Fantasy VI. Right. Just wild. It's awesome.
And Brad is a character amazing, man.
Yeah, he's by the end I haven't fully completed it yet because I hopped into the epilogue while I was towards the end of this game, just to kind of make sure I got both of them in for the review. But I don't like Brad like the most of the way through when things, without saying it, the story starts to like you realize the story is evolving along the way, and you stop sort of cheering for Brad and start accepting kind of what Brad has to do, and you start looking inward. You're like, well, I'm Brad. Why? What am I gonna do to resolve this? Am I willing to do this? And so, yeah, by the end, you kind of hate yourself for some of the choices you make. But I think that's just the capability of a good storyteller utilizing this. He could have made this in Unity, could have made this in Unreal, and made like a 3D world. But no, this really was the presentation of this really does hit. And again, I think it works well because it reminds me of those NES era, Super NES era games when I was the age of, some of the initial storytelling aspects of this. You find out, like the very opening scene is Brad gets beat up by bullies and he has to go home and his dad yells at him for not being able to stick up for himself. And I'm like, shit, that was me when I was playing games that looked like this.
Well, and that opening scene is so...
I didn't get beat up, though. I beat up other people. But
that opening scene is so powerful because you're walking through a neighborhood and you're like, oh, where's my house? You're trying to figure out where your house is. You keep walking.
Yeah.
Keep walking. And you get to like the really shitty beat up house. And you're like, okay, this is where Brad lives. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like this the storytelling is just so so
good. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah. Lisa, check it out. I was playing another storytelling game. Very different style of storytelling game. Y'all know how much of a fan of The Expanse I am. I've been talking about The Expanse, the TV series, forever, because I really felt like it was the Mass Effect TV series. So what if they made a game about Mass Effect? That would be awesome. Actually, yeah, Telltale has their Expanse series. Telltale has an Expanse series of games, kind of a season. I think it's going to be 5 or 6 episodes. I'm talking about the first 3 here, and they're sort of a prequel to some of the later events in the show. It stars, I think Kara G is the name of the actress, and she's Kamina Drummer, who is really one of my favorite characters in the whole TV series, and really a fan favorite character on the show. So it's Telltale. It is, Mass Effect, the show, the game. It's by Deck 9, actually. Deck 9 was a developer in this, so you know them from such hits as Life is Strange. And so they take elements of both Telltale, which is the real kind of the choice, and you still do get some of those "they'll remember this later" aspects, but only like really specific moments. But then you also get the pedigree from Deck 9 and their understanding of gameplay and sort of action and moving around and things like that. So it feels like, I made the joke, but yeah, it feels like a adventure game version of what I really love about Mass Effect, which is the human to human, or the character to character interaction. Sorry, they're aliens in Mass Effect. They're all humans here. The character to character interactions and the character to environment interactions. I don't mean like shooting stuff and blowing stuff up type of interaction. I mean like characters are scouting and they're scavenging for stuff and they're interacting with the world around them to find out things. It's got a great plot. Again, it's almost predictable in a way because it's because it's a prequel. Kamina is she gets essentially a task by her captain and ends up finding out, things are greater than they seem, which is kind of the typical story for these types of games in general. But the acting and the VA, especially in this, really bind it together in a lot better ways than I've typically felt in adventure games. In fact, this reminds me of the first Walking Dead game that I played from Telltale, like that very original Telltale game where it's not as groundbreaking, but it really feels fresh from a standpoint of, I haven't played a adventure game like this in a long time. One thing I really liked about this is there are like some cool zero-G moments. There's some cool walking through different types of spaceships and cruisers and things like that. I mean, if you're a fan of the show, which I think this is definitely aimed at folks who enjoy the TV series, you'll recognize a lot of these locations and you'll recognize a lot of the design aspects, which I really appreciated. Like there's a shot here. I'm going to pause it real quick. The suits all match the suits from the TV series. Stuff like, now this is a nerd thing that I look at, chairs, seats that are in the TV series, the way the screens are angled back towards the characters, like it's very authentic to how someone would function in this situation. So The Expanse as a TV series really nailed the actual science aspect of it, and they've translated that into the game extremely well. So yeah, it's so good. It's really well written. It's got a great story. Like, because of how they're kind of linking some of the gameplay elements with the narrative, like the choices, it flows fairly quickly. It's not like it's not a short game, but it definitely flows well enough where it feels like an episode of TV. Like you're watching an episode of a really enjoyable episode of television where everything is just hitting the pace. You're not left like jumping across a big giant expanse between starships. It's like, okay, I gotta jump from this ship to this one, then I gotta jump from this one to this one. No, there's none of those types of stupid moments. Everything really does feel like it's meant to happen, and I do like that that level of sort of choosing, or the development team really choosing what those little battles are and how they're guiding the players along, because you don't want to give, in a game like this, which is so narrative focused as all of these adventure games are, if you have too much openness, then you start to lose the punch of that story. So you do have to scale back some of that. So they did a good job. They made me feel like I'm doing things on my own in a lot of cases. Like one of the opening scenes is you're walking around the kind of the ship that you're stationed on, and you're kind of seeing things, and it's like, oh, I wonder what this picture is over here, and I wonder what this what this little thing is in the corner. And kind of as gamers, we're going to be inquisitive and start to kind of scour around, but all of those things are placed in very specific reasons, so that if we see that picture there, we're actually getting a little bit of insight into someone, and then we'll be able to interact with them a little bit differently because we saw that picture, not because it's built into the game as a reaction. It's like, oh, you looked at my picture earlier. No, it's because we saw this photo and realized, okay, that's her husband, so that's why she's acting a certain way. But I wouldn't have found that out unless I looked at the picture. But because the picture is placed where it is, the developers knew we're going to look at it. So it's really smart in a lot of those elements. Visually, it's fantastic. The animations are kind of hit or miss. There's some stiffness to it, but it's a freaking, lighting is great. It's so freaking smooth. I was playing it at like 60 FPS, and it was just freaking gorgeous. The audio is fantastic. I mentioned the VA, Kara G, does an awesome job, but I think a lot of the other voice actors do great work too. Yeah, it's hard to really describe more of it because it's The Expanse. Like, if you've ever watched The Expanse, this really does feel like an episode of The Expanse. There are never more than like 6 characters in an episode of The Expanse, and this captures that. It's a couple hours or so long, without giving away too much of the time, and I think they nailed the landing. Again, these are the 3 episodes that I'm able to talk about, and I'm pretty stoked to have gone through it. As a fan of The Expanse, I mean, we've been looking for more. Unfortunately, the show kind of ended before they got to the latter books, but it's great. I'm digging it, and I love the characters that are in this. I love the voice acting.
So, I guess it's just covering the politics that happened before the book, because they can't really cover what actually.
No, so it's telling her story.
Books.
So it's really about her. It's how she goes from being this sort of, second in command or so, all the way to holding a position of power within the OPA in the series. And so that, I think, it's more about fleshing out her story. It does tie in some of those politics, but you don't find that out. At least these first 3 episodes don't tell you that, oh, this is stuff that's going to affect the TV series. Right now, you're kind of guided to say, this is stuff that's going to affect her growth as a character. How does that later on affect the TV series? Play the game and find out. But yeah, it's cool. I'm enjoying it. I think the full game is releasing. I think the last episode is like October supposed to release or something like that. But yeah, I dig it. I dig it.
What's so interesting to me about The Expanse is everything about the show, or like the series in general, does a great job of like covering the big secret of the series.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Hey, the big secret of the series, if you watch any episode of The Expanse, is that there's alien goo. So the alien goo in like the very first season, but the first season of the show is so smartly written because it's actually sort of part Mass Effect, like space opera, but it's also part like noir. There's a whole lot of noir elements, like detective noir. Because
it's got the 2 characters.
It's got the 2 characters. Miller is fantastic, and that they stuff has to combine because they, the way they want to tell the story was really sort of kind of coming together to whatever. But yeah, it's great. It's space opera level stuff, and this is just giving a lot more depth to a character that became a really strong favorite in the show. So yeah, The Expanse, check it out. We got this as an Epic Game Store code. So yeah, sweet. Thank y'all. That's it. That's what we've got. We had an hour and 24 minutes. It's pretty solid.
That's great.
Shocking.
That's great. If JJ was on
That's
here,
shocking.
We've been 4 more hours later. I had all my notes here for my reviews. I've been trying to take more notes as I review stuff because it makes it easier for me to actually know what to talk about. So that's a good thing to do. Yeah. All right. You can find us at sidequesting.com. You can find us in the Discord, which is fantastic. Find us at Twitch and at YouTube. What are you drinking there? What's that going on? What's going on there, Zach?
That's water. That's water.
The good stuff.
He's like,
my yummy
Aqua
butterscotch
and ASMR.
liqueur was in this guy right here. You
Nice.
can't see it. There you go.
What? He blends in. No.
right here. He disappears. There's a whole fuck ton of games coming out. We're getting we're at the point now where we're getting review codes thrown at us left and right.
Alan Wake 2 is coming out soon.
God, I forgot that game is coming to.
Wait, is it really?
Yeah,
October.
It's at Rocktober. There are so many fucking good quality games this
Oh
year.
my god.
This seems like the fucking year.
I actually can't believe that I'm going to play Alan Wake 2 in my lifetime.
Man, yeah. Spider-Man is coming out this year.
Same month.
Same
Snooze.
month. October is.
I sleep.
Nick All-Star Battle 2 comes out in October.
I coma.
That's for Zach and I, and maybe JJ as well. God, there's so many. Forza. I think Forza's October as well, isn't it? God Almighty, that's a Dolly, JJ, and Sam game right there. Forza. But shit, guys. Yeah.
Well, I got to get some sleep so I can play that stuff.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Getting sleep is good. I'm gonna go do that in a little bit here too. Nah, I'm lying. I'm just gonna play video games. But like I said, you can find us at sidequesting.com, sidequesting TV on YouTube and Twitch, the Discord. I'll have us set up on Blue Sky eventually. I think I have one invite, so maybe I'll use the invite and give us a sidequesting account. Might as well. And with that said, check out the PAX West party list. Got that out a month and a half early because I figured let's fucking go and start getting those hits. Bring those hits in, everybody. Get that SEO, and it's working. We can find Zach, Taylor, and I in the Discord. Who knows whatever social media website is your preference these days.
Discord's the only guaranteed.
Discord's the only guaranteed. And even then, you won't always get to hear from Taylor because he's usually traveling or working.
That's true. But if you send me an @ I will reply.
It's true. Yeah. And
Guaranteed.
Zach frozen again? He looks frozen.
No, he's just statuesque.
I was reading something.
All right. With that said, we'll see you all on the next episode of The Side Quest. We love you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Peace.